All right, guys, this week we're going to be in Genesis chapter 11. We'll be looking at the Tower of Babel and a really great story that we have this week. Actually, a very short story as well, but just to bring you up to speed, we just covered the section on Noah. And if you remember, all the people in that time, they were corrupt and all their thoughts were evil. It was an evil, perverse generation. And so God, he actually destroyed the earth with a flood and left it up to Noah and his family to repopulate the earth and start things new. And so we believe that there has been some time that's passed at this point because the earth seems to be have a great population as well now, and so some time has went by, and we see that the people go right back to what they did before. They became evil and corrupted again in this time, and so they began to look for a place to live, and they found that place, and there they wanted to build a tower to the heavens. And this doesn't literally mean that they wanted to build a tower that they thought would reach God's heaven. What it means is they wanted to build a great tower in the sky. And so in the heavens, that word is used as in three different ways, and one of those ways is in the skies where the clouds are. And so this tower was going to be built to the sky, and what it would at the top of it, they would have put a shrine where they could worship the God of their choice, who wasn't the real God. And so this was a corrupt act, a direct act against God. A couple of commands that should come to our mind is that they should love the Lord their God with all their heart, mind, soul, and strength. And so they're violating that command. And also we see that they came together. They wanted to gather in one spot, make a name for themselves. So they were focused on their name. They weren't focused on the name of God. And they were actually disobeying another command that we get from Genesis, that God commanded the people, and even he commanded Noah, once they got off the boat, to be fruitful and multiply and scatter the earth and subdue it and conquer it. And so these people, they wanted to gather in one spot, make a name for themselves, and they disobeyed God in the process. There's a lot of questions I have here that I'm working through to put on this worksheet, but really what we should be thinking about when we read the Tower of Babel are a few things here. We see the selfishness of the people, and we see their disobedience to God, and we see the consequences for their sins, what God does, and the grace that he actually shows in this. And so as we're thinking about this, we should be asking ourselves, whose name am I concerned about? Am I concerned about my name, making my name great, or the Lord's name great? What about areas in my life that I'm not submitting to God's will? And what towers am I building in my life? What things am I building in my life? What things am I worshiping and glorifying in my life that are not of God? And then also, I think about God's judgment and discipline in my life. You see, God, he issued out this judgment and this discipline that he would give them languages and scatter them all over. And this thwarted the people's plans, but what they didn't see was that it was actually best for them. You see, they were violating God's law. And previously, just a few chapters back, because people had violated his law, he destroyed everyone except for Noah and his family. And in this case, he shows them grace, and he just mixes up the languages and spreads them out all over the earth so that they won't come together and do this again. And so he actually is very gracious to them in his judgment and discipline, something that we should be aware of in our life, that oftentimes the Lord disciplines us, and we see that he disciplines us with a larger picture in mind. And so the application here is great. There's a great amount of application. And then when I think about a Christ connection in this section, I think about the fact that in this time, in the rebellion, God stepped down out of heaven. He came down to the people to intervene. That's the same thing Christ did for us. He got up off the throne. He forfeited his rights, and he came down and took on flesh and dwelt among us, and he intervened on our behalf. And that's exactly what God did in this story. And so we see a direct connection to Christ here and what he does for us in a future time from this story. And so a great story. I encourage you to read through it a couple of times, be familiar with it. There's going to be a lot of questions about the language and ethnicities and this and that, and this is where this happens. This is where we see the languages get mixed up, and different ethnicities are birthed out of this rebellion of the people, which I believe is another gracious thing that God did for us, because our world is so much better with different ethnicities, different languages, different cultures. It's a lot better place to live, and I think that God knew what He was doing, and so those things are going to come up. So be prepared for that. But other than that, just a great story to share with the students. Looking forward to it.